Hi, parents and students. This is Stephen Akins. I am a teacher here at the virtual school, and we just wanted to create a video just to say welcome and to give you some useful information. Parents, if you're watching this without your child, I think it would be a great idea if you both watch this together. That way, you're both on the same page when you start working in virtual school. There'll be specific slides through this presentation for parents and for students, so it would be great if you both watch this together. So an overview of what we're going to go through. For parents, mostly what we're going to go through is how you check your child's grade. And for students, we want you to know exactly what we expect of you. And students, your slides will be at the end of this presentation. So this is what we're going to go through, checking grades and expectations from the teachers. So if your child is new to virtual school, there's going to be some things that they're going to need to make sure they do and know before they start. If your child has already been in virtual school before, there are still some big changes that they need to know about. So your child is going to be enrolled in either two different learning platforms here. The first one is Schoology, and the other one is Access. Schoology is what many of our students are going to be enrolled in, and Access, there are going to be some students also using Access. So these are two different learning platforms. Some students will be doing Schoology, some students will be doing Access, some students may be doing both. So if your child is using Schoology, I'm going to walk you through how your child is going to view their grades. And if your child is using Access, I'm also going to walk you through how your child is going to view their grade. So let's start with Schoology, since most of our students will be using Schoology. So I have a fake student account here, and most of the time when your student logs into Schoology, they will see the materials or either the updates. When they click on materials, your teacher may have announcements or folders here. This is where they're going to get all their information, is through materials. So let's say that my student has been working through Schoology and their course for a few weeks, and they finally have some grades in the computer. So the way, parents, that you need to make sure you view your child's grade is to make sure your child is logged in on a computer. And once the child is logged in, you're going to click Grades out here to the side. Once you click on Grades, we're in quarter one, so I'm going to click on Q1. Looks like so far I have a 100 for the student. I don't see anything specific, but if I click on Daily Activities, there is a quiz that this student was supposed to complete, and the student made a 100 out of 100. So with this quiz, the student can click on it. If the teacher allows them to go back and view their answers, the teacher may open that up later on. But this is the most important part. We want to look at the feedback, what the teacher's telling our students. This teacher said, "Great job on this quiz. I can tell that you're studying and doing a great job at taking notes." So this is how your student's going to see their feedback. They're going to look and see what the teacher's asking them to do, if they need improvement or if they're submitting work that is acceptable. So that's the easiest way for you to find your child's grade in Schoology. Okay? So let's go back and let's talk about Access. Access is a little bit different, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. But before we go to that, if you want to pause this video and look, here are instructions on how your student is going to log into Access. So there's a lot of different ways to get to that, but if you log in and you go to the virtual school homepage, click on Academics, there's a link to Access. So your student is going to type in their username and password from their login, and then they're going to click on the Grades tab at the top of the page, and there's going to be an average that appears at the top, and there's going to be individual grades for all the assignments. So let's take a look at what a Access class will look like for a student. So here I've just logged in, And here are the courses for a student. Let's click on this one. And you can see there's a lot of information here. There's updates. This is going to be really important for your student to make sure that they go through and look at their updates. Here are the grades at the top. And here are all the things in this course that have been graded. And you can see that there are point values here, and there's a little bit of feedback out to the side. So very similar to Schoology, but this way you can see all of the assignments that are graded at one time. Another thing that you might want to do is see how far along your child is in the class. So if you go to Content, you'll be able to see on the left-hand side that we have different units or modules that the student is supposed to go through. Parents, one really important thing to note when looking on Access is when you do see these check marks on the left, it doesn't mean that the student is completely finished with assignments, discussions, quizzes, or tests. It simply means the students have viewed that particular module. So you need to make sure that you're clicking on Assessments at the top, look through the items in the drop-down, and make sure you're clicking on each link to make sure students are turning in their assignments. So students always have to go through a student orientation before any of their course information shows up in Access. So if they don't complete the student orientation, they won't be able to move through the class. So you can see that for this particular class, this student is 98.48% complete. There is one topic that they have not completed yet. So that is an overview of grades and progress through Access. So this is exactly what we just talked about. Another thing that this slide talks about is where students can actually look at their assignments. And if you click on the assessment tabs at the top, there is a drop box, which is just a list of all the assignments that the students will upload. There's also a section for quizzes and tests. So if the submission column has a number 1, then the assignment has been turned in. If it's graded, the grade will appear in the score column. Okay, so that's good information for you parents as your child goes through an Access class. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about with grades is the county grading system, and for the state of Alabama, we use iNow for grades. Parents, the most up-to-date and accurate place for you to check your child's grades is going to be first to check Schoology and Access. iNow grades will not be updated as regularly, so please make sure you check Schoology and Access first. If you are familiar, if you've been here in the county for a while, you know about iNow. Hopefully you've logged in to your students' grades before. If you're new to the county, this is going to be a little bit different for you if you're not familiar. If you've had your child in a school here in Alabama, iNow should still be familiar to you. So let's take a look at how you're going to log into iNow. So if you use this link, this will take you to some really useful information. So if you discover that your account has been disabled, here are some informations that you need to go through. But those of you who have students that are accessing iNow, there is the link that you will click. When you click on that link, you will see this. For the username, you will type in home user, and for the password, you'll type in home user 1. So when you enter that information in, you will see this. So if this is the first time you're logging in, it says in the old password field, enter in the password provided by the school. In the new password field, choose a password. You are going to use forward. So if you are logging in for the first time, these are instructions for you. If you're not logging in for the first time, you're going to type in your normal username and password. So if you have difficulty logging in, please call the school office and ask to speak with the registrar. I'm going to give you information for that in just a moment. Make sure you keep your username and password secure. Make sure, parents, that your student is not purposely changing the password, because that has happened before and it locks you out as a parent from seeing your child's grades. So just make sure that you know the username and password once that has been created. So if we go to the next slide, if you're having trouble logging in, and maybe you're logging in for the first time, Miss Brandy Newton is who you need to contact here at the virtual school. There's her email address, and here's the phone number. So that's going to help you get logged into iNow. And hopefully you won't have too much trouble, but if you do, she is here to help you with that. Now, another way that students can log in is through their portal, and this is the link here that students can use to log into their grades. Once they log in with their iBaldwin, they will see this icon here, and that's a different way to get to your grades. Okay, so now let's move on and let's talk about teacher expectations for virtual school. So I want to go through and tell you what your child's classes might look like. All of our classes here are going through the Alabama Course of Study Standards, just like every public school in Alabama. The best way to find what your child is learning in a particular class is to find your child's syllabus for each class. So what is a syllabus? It is just your teacher's way of communicating to the student what they expect of them, how to contact them, and what is in the class. So I have a sample syllabus here that I want to show you. This is for one of my classes. This is for biology. And here you can find information here. I'm going to have a Google Voice number inserted so that students can contact me. Here is a brief description of the course. These are the units that we're going through in our course. Materials, skills. Here's a really important category, grading. Here's how the students will get their grades: 50%, 40%, and 10%. Another really important thing for students is the academic honesty policy, and this is linked in this particular syllabus. We're going to talk about that more in just a moment. Expectations for the teacher and some notes from the teacher. So this is just what's happening in the course and what your child can expect in the course. So let's move on. So another thing I want to talk about is how teachers are going to execute their courses. Some of them are going to do it a little bit differently. Some teachers may actually choose to have topics completed in a particular order. So what does that mean? That means some activities may not appear in the course before a previous assignment is completed. So in my class, I may not want my students to move on until they have completed a specific assignment. Once they do, then the course will open up the next unit or the next folder. So just keep that in mind. If a student can't see a particular assignment that they're looking for, make sure they go back and complete maybe missing assignments or assignments they may have skipped. Another thing that is important to talk about is the grading timeline. Some teachers are going to be teaching a lot of students at one time. Our enrollment is really high right now, so teachers are going to be working really hard to keep their grades up to date. Many teachers have set their goal of entering grades into the grade book 72 hours after the assignment has been completed. So as students are turning in work, we want to get that graded as soon as we can. But please be aware that we are teaching a lot of students, and the first couple of weeks it may take us some time to get through a lot of these assignments and get them graded. But I'm sure we will all get on a good track, and we'll all start running smoothly as soon as we get these courses laid out. Another thing, parents, is please know that our most successful students are typically the ones who have parents who check grades and check to be sure their students are on pace. So your students should be able to pull up their grades at any time on Schoology or Access. So that's what we've already talked about. So please just keep a check on their grades, and I'm sure your child's going to be very successful. And if your child's struggling, don't hesitate to contact the teacher. Okay, students, this is for you, so you need to make sure you listen up to this. Students, if you ever find yourself falling behind in a class, don't panic. There's a lot of reasons why you might be falling behind, and we're not going to judge you for that, but we do want to make sure you get back on track as soon as possible. So if you're falling behind in a class, this is what your teacher will do. Your teacher is going to try to communicate with you. They're going to try to get up with you and see what's going on so you can get back on track. So make sure you're checking your email, your eyeballing email, your text messages, and we probably are going to leave you voicemails if you're not answering your phone. So make sure you check your voicemail. We want you to be successful, so please don't be afraid to talk to us. We want to make sure you are going to have a really good experience in virtual school. So if you're falling behind, what's going to happen to your grades? Well, if you're late on assignments, there's going to be a pacing zero, that's what we call them, and it's a zero to fill the place until you have a chance to go back and complete that assignment. Now, your teachers want you to complete assignments on time, but again, we understand sometimes things happen, and you might be overwhelmed and you might be a little behind. That's understandable to a degree, but we want to make sure you are holding yourself responsible and turning assignments in on time. So if you find yourself having some of these pacing zeros in the grade book, you need to go back and finish that unsubmitted work as soon as possible. Okay? And again, we're going to be communicating with you, and hopefully you will be able to get your assignments up to date, and you won't have to worry about pacing zeros. Parents and students, this is extremely important for you to see. Here at the virtual school, we have an academic integrity contract for students, and I'm not going to go through the whole contract because parents, your child will have a copy of this in one of their courses. We call this a leadership course. All students must read this document. Okay, I have a link here to the document so you can see kind of what it looks like. It goes through expectations of what we want students to do, what will happen as consequences of cheating or plagiarism and things like that. So students need to make sure they go through that and just make sure they understand that we're holding them accountable because they are agreeing to this integrity policy. Okay? So next year, if you are interested in virtual school for next year, we want you to come back. So students, we want you to have the best education possible. If you want to continue with this, here's some things that you want to do. You want to maintain appropriate course progression by completing weekly assignments. So take it 1 week at a time if you're trying to work through slow. Some teachers are going to open up your class so that you can work at a faster pace if you choose to. You need to make sure you also adhere to the academic integrity contract, what we just talked about. And you also need to remain in good standing in the virtual school. So we don't want you to have any discipline issues. If you have technology issues, Mr. Gardner is here at the virtual school and he would be happy to help you. Here's his email address if you want to write that down. He's going to be super helpful for you, and we hope that you don't have technical issues, but if you do, he's here to help. And one last thing before we go, we are so happy that you're here. This is going to be a great school year, and we have great staff here, and I can't wait to meet my students, and the other teachers can't wait to meet their students. So I hope everyone has a great year.